What would you do if your parents sold everything you built, then erased you with a voicemail? That night, my phone lit up at 11:48 p.m. It was from Dad. No text, just a voicemail. That alone was weird. He hated leaving voice messages. I had this sinking feeling in my chest before I even hit play. Then his voice came through, cold and calculated. Genevieve, we've made a decision. Effective immediately, you're no longer part of Blair Holdings. It's for the good of the company. Please respect that. There's no need to call back. I froze. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stared at the screen, heart pounding, throat tight. Then, ping, a second notification popped up. Mom, this time. Just a text. This wasn't easy. Hope you understand. Focus on yourself for now. Love you. They sold me out. No explanation, no warning, no meeting, just deleted. I walked to the kitchen, barefoot, the floor ice cold under my feet. Poured myself a glass of water, just to give my hands something to do. My stomach churned. I replayed the voicemail, once, then again. By the third time, I was sitting on the floor, knees to chest, still holding my phone like it might apologize, but it didn't. 2 years of no vacations, 5 years of missed birthdays, 8 years of showing up early, staying late, cleaning up everyone's mistakes, especially my little brother Theo's, and 10 years building the proprietary AI system they just sold last week to a venture group in Singapore for $6.5 million. I only knew because I had dinner with the broker 3 nights before. He'd mentioned it, thinking I was involved, thinking I was part of the win. Turns out I was just the tool that built it. And they erased the tool. You know what stings the most? Not the betrayal, not even the money. It's the fact that they didn't think I deserved a conversation. They didn't have the guts to look me in the eye and say, "You're out." They sent a message, like firing a contractor, like ending a gym membership. At 11:48 at night, I curled up on the hardwood floor, staring out the window. The city was still buzzing, neon lights flashing off rooftops, people out there living. While I sat alone, tossed aside like I never mattered. I wasn't even angry, not yet. I was just erased. And yeah, this might sound like the start of one of those revenge stories people can't stop watching on YouTube. But for me, it didn't start with revenge. It started with silence. Silence and survival. Because once you hear your own father's voice telling you that you're no longer part of the family business, something inside you just dies. The next morning, I woke up with my back sore and heart heavier than it had ever been. I opened my laptop out of instinct, like I always did. But for the first time in years, I wasn't logging into Blair Holdings' back-end system. I clicked open a folder titled G-Link Draft. It was my own project, my version of the AI system, one I never had time to finish, one they never knew existed. My hands hovered over the keyboard, and I whispered to myself, if they can erase me that easily, then I'll just make sure the next thing I build doesn't carry their name. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying, though I did, but mostly because I couldn't stop thinking. The kind of thinking that feels like drowning. No clear answers, just wave after wave of what just happened. By 4 a.m, I was still sitting on my living room floor, the voicemail playing on a loop in my mind like some twisted lullaby. My back ached from the hardwood, my legs were cramping, but I didn't move. I just sat. I hadn't eaten since lunch. The fridge had half a carton of almond milk, 3 eggs, and a leftover salad that had turned suspicious. I opened a pack of instant ramen and stared blankly while the water boiled. I didn't even care when I dropped the seasoning packet into the sink by mistake. Do you know what it's like to give up your 20s for a dream someone else cashes out on? Because I did. I gave them all of it. Every holiday missed. Every date cancelled. Every apartment I didn't move into because I was saving for a down payment on that stupid condo Dad promised to help with once we IPO'd. And guess what? That down payment account? I checked it. Gone. Emptied. 4 days before they cut me off. No warning. No explanation. Just a clean sweep. Not even my name on the paperwork anymore. They'd planned this. Weeks in advance. Probably even longer. I was just too loyal to notice. Too proud to imagine they could actually do it. Too blind to see they weren't building with me, they were building on me. And here's the part that gets me. Really gets me. They didn't even hate me. They didn't need to. To them it was just business. So, let me ask you something. If your own parents sold your life's work, erased your name, and took the money, would you forgive them? Would you try to fix it? Would you burn it all down? Or would you walk away?
I don't know. Maybe tell me in the comments, because I swear if this happened to someone else, I'd be screaming on their behalf. But when it's you, you're just numb. I spent the next day in silence, didn't answer texts, didn't open emails, just walked in circles around my tiny studio apartment, the one I never fully unpacked because I thought I'd be moving back to the city any day now once the new expansion deal closed. Spoiler, I wasn't going anywhere. That night I found the jewellery box Mum gave me when I turned 25. Inside was the bracelet engraved, "Blood Builds Legacy." I almost laughed. Almost. I sold it the next morning for $300, paid rent, bought groceries, didn't look back. Day 3, I walked past Blair Tower on my way to meet a freelance client, looked up at the logo, my last name, still shining in steel, not for long. Something inside me hardened that day, not into hate. Hate is messy. What I felt was colder, sharper, purpose. I didn't want revenge, I wanted clarity, and I wanted freedom. Freedom from them, from that name, from the idea that my value came from their approval. So, I went home, made a cup of tea, and opened my old laptop. The screen flickered like it was surprised to be touched again, and I clicked on the file that read G-Link Core Beta. My hands hovered, then landed, and I typed one line in the notes section. Start with the broken, rebuild from there. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, not my friends, not the one co-worker who still texted me, not even Theo, though let's be honest, he probably wouldn't have noticed if I disappeared off the planet. Every day I worked a quiet, boring job, data cleanup for some small property analytics firm, no big pay, no business cards, no title. And every night, I built. From that creaky desk in my apartment, the one I'd found on Craigslist for $40, I pulled out my old laptop and opened the folder that still gave me chills. G-Link Core Beta. It was the version of the platform that they didn't want. Too experimental, too risky. Dad called it a waste of time the last time I mentioned it. But I knew it had legs. It could sync live data from tenant behaviour, market shifts, zoning laws, and even local permit trends, then predict value spikes 90 days ahead of time. And more than that, it was mine. No Blair stamped on the code, no family logo in the corner, just me. I couldn't afford fancy software licenses, so I coded most of it on open source stacks, drank too much instant coffee, and kept my curtains closed until the sun disappeared. Sometimes I didn't eat until 9 p.m, sometimes I forgot to. But every line of code felt like a brick, and I was building something no one could take away this time. The nights were still hard, I won't lie. There were moments I'd pause mid-keystroke and wonder if I was stupid, if maybe they were right to cut me out, if I was just bitter, just replaceable. But then I'd remember that night, the voicemail, the text from Mum. I'd remember that they didn't even ask, they just took. That kind of betrayal, it either breaks you or it makes you work in a way no one sees coming. So I worked. 2 months in, I had a prototype. 4 months, I had a friend of a friend intro me to a small angel investor. They didn't sign anything yet, but they said one word that no one in my family had said to me in years: impressive. It wasn't much, but it was oxygen, and that was enough to keep going. By month 9, I had signed my first paid client, an underdog real estate group trying to predict suburban growth post-pandemic. By month 12, I'd made more money than I ever had at Blair Holdings. But I still didn't tell anyone because I wasn't done, not even close. This wasn't about beating them. It was about proving to myself that I was never the weak link. I was the foundation they built everything on. And now I was laying my own, quietly, brick by brick. Because sometimes the loudest power is the kind that grows in silence. They thought I'd stay down. They thought I'd break, maybe run back, beg for an explanation, or quietly disappear. But I didn't. I didn't scream. I didn't post a dramatic essay online or confront anyone at the office. I didn't even tell my best friend what happened, not for a while. I just went quiet. Because here's the thing, when your whole life gets erased overnight, sometimes the loudest thing you can do is build something they'll never see coming. That morning, I opened the file. G-Link, Core Beta. It was messy, unfinished. Half of the code didn't even compile. But it was mine, every algorithm, every function, built from the parts of me they never noticed. I'd started it over 2 years ago, back when Dad said I was wasting time on side projects, and Mom told me to focus on the family brand, so I wrote it in secret, late at night, on my own laptop, saved on a flash drive tucked inside a fake book on my shelf. Now it was all I had. And honestly, that made it priceless. For the next 16 months, I vanished. Not physically. I still lived in the same apartment, still walked past Blair Tower every Tuesday on the way to client meetings. But I stopped being visible. Stopped attending the networking brunches, the family events, the galas I used to get dressed up for. I wore quiet clothes, tied my hair back, kept my head down. During the day, I worked contract jobs, freelance data analyst gigs, app testing, anything that paid enough for groceries and rent. At night, I built. I coded until my eyes blurred. I taught myself API integration, back-end security, UI flow. I learned how to pitch investors, how to present burn rate, how to file an LLC. And slowly, something started to grow, quietly. Like a root under frozen ground. I called it G-Link Realty OS. The idea was simple. A clean, transparent, AI-based platform for commercial real estate portfolio management. No gatekeeping, no manipulation, no legacy games. I built it for everyone who ever got shut out of the room. Week by week, I stitched it together. Sometimes I'd eat peanut butter toast at midnight, still in yesterday's clothes. Sometimes I cried over a bug that crashed the build. And sometimes I just stared at the wall and whispered, "They're not the story anymore." One night, month 9, I got a ping on LinkedIn. A woman named Claudia Ramirez, head of partnerships at a mid-size VC firm in San Diego, messaged, "I've heard whispers about G-Link. Want to talk?" My hands shook. We set a Zoom call for 3 days later. I wore a blazer over my pajama pants, set up a fake bookshelf background, and prayed the internet wouldn't cut out. 30 minutes into the pitch, Claudia leaned forward and said, "You built this alone?" I nodded. "You know this solves half the compliance problems we've been stuck on since 2020, right?" I blinked. She smiled. "I think we should keep talking." That night, I didn't celebrate. I didn't post. I didn't call anyone. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the city lights, and whispered, "Not yet. It's not time to rise. Not until I've earned it." By month 12, I had 3 more interested firms. By month 15, I closed a pre-seed deal. $1.2 million in funding for a 12-month runway. And by month 16, I had my own office. It wasn't fancy, just a second-floor space above a florist's shop in downtown Boston. The carpet was old, the paint was cracked. But when I walked in and saw the name on the door, G-Link Holdings, Inc., I exhaled for the first time in over a year. I hadn't won. I hadn't gotten revenge. But I was alive, breathing, building, becoming. I wish I could say it healed everything, that I stopped missing them, stopped wishing, late at night, that maybe, just maybe, they'd call and say they were sorry, but they didn't, and I didn't wait. Because the only way out of the hole they left me in was to build a ladder myself. One line of code, one sleepless night, one step at a time. It had been 16 months since the voicemail, 16 months of silence. No birthday texts, no how are you calls, not even a passive-aggressive emoji from Mom. Then, one night, 10:11 p.m., my phone rang, not a number I recognized, but I knew the voice instantly. Theo. Gina? Hey, I know it's late. Listen, I wouldn't call unless it was serious. Dad's in trouble. IRS stuff. We really need you. Can you come to the family meeting tomorrow morning, please? No apology. No explanation, just the same urgent, slippery tone he always used when he needed someone to bail him out. I didn't say yes, didn't say no. I just said, where? The next morning, I walked into the same conference room I used to lead budget meetings in. Everything looked exactly the same. The cold glass table, the long leather chairs, the huge framed photo of my parents shaking hands with a senator they probably bribed at some point. Only difference, everyone was already seated, and no one was smiling. Dad was at the head of the table, shoulders tight, eyes bloodshot. Mom sat beside him, perfectly dressed as always, clutching a cup of tea like it was the only thing holding her together. Theo looked thinner and twitchy. And me? I didn't say a word. I just walked to the empty chair at the far end, the one Dad once told me I wasn't ready to sit in, and I sat. The silence was so thick you could hear the hum of the AC. Theo cleared his throat. So, yeah, we've hit a situation. IRS audit. Apparently someone reported inconsistencies from a few years back. I raised an eyebrow. Few? Dad finally spoke, his voice rough. They're looking back 7 years. I almost laughed. 7 years. 7 years of me patching holes in the books, fixing Theo's screw-ups, hiding off-record wire transfers Dad thought I didn't notice. 7 years of carrying a business they now realised they couldn't run without me. And now? Now they were drowning and begging the daughter they cut loose to throw them a life raft. You need my help? I asked quietly. They nodded. I leaned forward slightly. Why me? Theo's the one you trusted. Isn't this his job now? Dad's jaw tightened. You know the system better than anyone. I smiled faintly. Oh, I know. I built it. Another silence, deeper this time. Mum finally spoke, her voice small. Gina, this isn't the time for grudges. Grudges? I remember sleeping on the floor of my studio while you two sold my code and called it strategy. I remember eating dollar noodles for weeks because you drained my condo fund without a word. I remember hearing Dad's voice say, "Don't call back," like I was a temp assistant who got too clingy. Their eyes dropped. They had no defense, because it was all true. I'll help, I said slowly. But I have one condition. Theo leaned forward too quickly. Anything. I want full access to all books, all servers, past and present, no passwords, no redactions, everything. Dad hesitated. Why? I looked him straight in the eye. Because I don't clean messes for free anymore. I own what I clean. They exchanged glances, realizing I had them cornered, and they agreed. That night, I sat in my apartment, laptop open, combing through files like an archaeologist digging through decades of polished lies. At 1:04 a.m., I found it. Buried wire transfers, offshore trusts, shell corporations, $6.5 million, my system's sale money, channeled through Novolux Holdings and from there into a trust account managed by Charles and Marianne Blair, not Blair Holdings, not the board, not even Theo, just them. They hadn't kicked me out because of directional differences. They hadn't even kicked me out to protect Theo. They kicked me out to cut me out of the payout. Period. And they did it cleanly, legally, coldly. They didn't just forget about me. They planned my exit like it was a spreadsheet formula. They took the thing I built with 10 years of my life and cashed it in like a poker chip. And when it started to blow up in their faces, they called the chip back. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding, staring at the spreadsheet like it might blink first. And then I did something I hadn't done since the night I got that voicemail. I opened a new folder. Named it simply Rebuild. Inside, I dragged every file, every contract, every internal message, and saved a backup on a secure encrypted drive. And then I created a second folder, Insurance, because this time I wasn't going to be quiet, and I wasn't going to be loyal. I was going to be prepared, because the next time they underestimated me, I wouldn't walk back into their boardroom needing them. I'd walk in owning it. They had no idea I was watching them drown. After that family meeting, I gave them just enough help to stall the fire, gave the IRS what they needed, cleaned up 2 quarters of messy books, stabilized the investor panic, just enough so no one would smell smoke for a few weeks. Then I pulled back. Because the truth, I wasn't there to save them. I was there to watch them burn without me. 2 weeks later, I made the first move, a quiet one. I filed a formal offer to purchase 3 commercial properties under Blair Holdings. The Lincoln District high-rise, their Beacon Hill headquarters, and the Stonemount mixed-use development downtown. Combined market value, $62.4 million. My offer, $31.8 million, all cash. Immediate closing. Cutthroat? Maybe. But I knew they were desperate. The IRS had frozen their lines of credit. The audit had spooked their long-time investor. And their debt schedule was crawling toward default like a ticking clock. They needed liquidity. Fast. And I had it. Through G-Link Holdings, of course. Not Genevieve Blair. They wouldn't know it was me. Not until it was too late. The phone call came 36 hours later. Theo again. Gina, did you know a firm called G-Link just offered to buy 3 of our major assets at like half value? I sipped my tea. I've heard of them. Smart firm. Dad's losing it. He thinks we should consider it, that if we don't, the bank steps in next quarter, but this can't be you, right? I didn't answer. Gina, please. You wouldn't do this to your own family, would you? There it was, the guilt, the same flavour of manipulation dressed in soft panic. You destroyed this family the moment you cashed in my name without telling me, I said quietly. All I'm doing now is offering to buy what's left. Then I hung up. The next day, I walked back into that boardroom. This time, not in a blouse or pencil skirt. I wore power. Navy pantsuit, minimal makeup, clean ponytail, not a hint of apology. The receptionist stuttered when she saw me. Miss Blair, are you here to see your father? No, I said, handing her a packet. I'm here for the acquisition meeting. Inside the conference room, the board sat in nervous silence. Most of them hadn't looked me in the eye since I was removed.
Dad looked pale. Mum wore her pearls like armour. Theo looked like he hadn't slept. I dropped the file on the table. You have 48 hours to accept or decline the terms. If declined, we proceed with foreclosure and asset seizure under Clause 14C. Dad opened his mouth. You're bluffing. I slid a second folder across the table. Signed agreements, escrow documents, investor backing. Try me. Silence. Then Theo exploded. You wouldn't do this. We're family. I turned to him. You made me family when it was convenient. You made me competition the moment you cut me out. He stood, fists clenched. You'll regret this, Gina. I stood too. I already did. Every night I cried myself to sleep thinking I lost everything. But now I see it clearly. You didn't take anything from me. You freed me. 47 hours later, they accepted. All 3 properties transferred to G-Link Holdings, including their beloved headquarters on Beacon Street. It was poetic in a way. I used to walk past that building like an orphan peering through the gates of her former home. Now, I owned the gates and everything behind them. I didn't celebrate, didn't post a smug selfie or toast champagne. I just stood in the empty top-floor corner office once known as Dad's command post and opened the blinds. The skyline looked different from up here, less intimidating, more mine. Later that week, a business article hit every major platform. Blair empire crumbles as tech startup quietly acquires its core assets. Gina Blair refuses comment. Investors applaud ruthless precision. I didn't need to comment. My silence said enough. Because this was never about revenge, it was about reclaiming the parts of me they thought were disposable and making them undeniable. That night I left the office at 9:23 p.m. A black town car waited outside. My driver opened the door. On the door panel were the gold-embossed letters, GBH Genevieve Blair Holdings. I slid into the back seat, shut the door softly, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Not because I'd won, but because they finally realized I was never the one who failed the family. They were the ones who failed me. And now they worked in buildings with my name on the deed. I didn't feel powerful when I bought their buildings. I didn't feel like a queen reclaiming her throne. I just felt still. Like the part of me that had been running, crawling, bleeding for their love had finally sat down and gone quiet. It was never about the buildings. It wasn't even about the $6.5 million they took from me. It was about walking back into something that used to crush me and not feeling small anymore. That was the real win. 3 weeks after the acquisition, my inbox exploded. The story had gone viral. Disowned daughter buys back the empire that erased her. Gina Blair plays the long game and wins. Reporters called, podcasters emailed, a couple of talk shows even reached out for interviews. I said no to all of them, not because I had something to hide, but because for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to explain myself to anyone. The silence that used to hurt me now protected me. It became my boundary. Then came the text, a random number, no name, just 2 short messages. We saw the article. Your father isn't doing well. Things are falling apart. We didn't know it would end like this. It didn't need a signature. I knew it was my mother. I stared at it for a long time, not because I was tempted to reply, but because for the first time I felt nothing. No anger, no aching hope, no spark of maybe she means it, just a deep, quiet sense of peace. They had chosen their comfort over me. They had chosen silence when I needed them to speak. And now that everything was burning, they wanted me to feel it with them. No, I wasn't theirs anymore. Instead, I spent that evening finalizing something that mattered.
something mine. I called it the Rebuild Initiative, a private non-profit fund designed to support young women in business who'd been pushed out, talked over, cut off, or like me, erased by the very people who were supposed to believe in them. It wasn't just about money, it was mentorship, training, emotional support, exit plans for women in toxic family businesses who needed to get out and start over. I funded it with 8% of G-Link Holdings' quarterly profit, and I didn't put my family's name on it. The launch event was small, just 80 people, investors, founders, friends who had quietly stood by me when things were ugly and unspoken. I stood at the podium in a black suit with no jewellery, hair back, hands steady, no teleprompter, no script, just my story. I was told once I didn't belong at the table, so I built a bigger one. I was told to be loyal to a legacy that had no room for me, so I wrote a new one. If you've ever been cut off, pushed aside, or told you were too much, too emotional, too inconvenient, let me say this: you are not too much. You were just in a room too small. The room went silent, then exploded in applause, but I didn't smile right away because I wasn't done. At the end of the night, I stepped outside. The air was cool, the city lights painting silver stripes on the pavement. That's when I saw him, Theo, leaning against a parked car, smaller than I remembered, eyes darker, shoulders slumped. He walked toward me, hands up. "Gina, I'm not here to fight." I didn't say anything. I didn't know you had this in you. I looked him in the eyes. "That's because you never bothered to look." He nodded slowly. "You won." I stepped closer. "No, I survived. You watched." He swallowed hard. "Is there any way back?" I didn't answer. I just walked past him, into the car waiting to take me home, because sometimes silence isn't a wound, it's a boundary. I keep that voicemail from my father, the one where he said, "Don't call back." Not because I'm still angry, but because it reminds me of something most people learn too late. Sometimes being counted out is the best thing that can ever happen to you. It forces you to count yourself back in, not for them, but for you. These days, I don't think about revenge. I think about growth, grace, quiet power. I walk into rooms that used to shut me out, and people ask for my opinion. I mentor women who think they've run out of options because someone once made me believe I didn't have any. And I wear my name again, not as a reminder of where I came from, but as proof of where I'm going. I didn't win, I didn't destroy anyone. I rebuilt. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been cut off by people who were supposed to protect you, erased without warning, told your voice didn't belong? What did you do? Did you fight to get back in? Or did you, like me, decide to build your own door? Tell me in the comments, because someone out there is feeling exactly how I once did, and maybe your story will help them breathe again.